Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I am going to try to do a stitching in hand tutorial the way that I stitch in hand. I have pulled some 10 count Lori Holt even weave in the color Heritage because it has bigger holes. Now, on a 10 count you would use probably at least 4 strands, but I wasn't planning on doing 4 strands, but I guess with the loop method I will have 4 strands, so we'll just go ahead and stick with that. Normally I use 2 over 2 or 2 over 1 on Aida or 2 over 2 on even weave or linen, but I'm gonna thread this needle. I may need a needle threader. And I picked some hot pink floss, so I'm going to start using the loop method, and what that means is you use your loop to tie off your thread. So I've got 2 strands doubled over. This, I think this is size 26 needle. Normally you would use probably a 22 or 24 on this, but I don't typically use this kind of fabric, so I don't have any size 24 needles out. So what I do when I'm going to start a project is I am right-handed, so I gather up some fabric in this hand and I hold it like this. Now, like I said, everybody does this differently. This is the way that I do it. And I learned this from watching Chelsea and Priscilla of Stitching with Housewives, but I don't know which one of them stitches this way, and I don't even know if it's exactly how they stitch. I just remember watching them and trying it myself, and it took me several tries to get the hang of the way that I move my needle. And then once I got the hang of the way that I move my needle, it took me a few weeks to learn how to do it with the tension because I was pulling too hard. And I still pull too hard when I'm not paying attention. I'm actually going to move this up so that I have the bottom. Okay. So what I do is I pull my needle up in the bottom left hole. I hold the loop with my finger, and I do not have pretty nails, I'm sorry. I hold it with my finger. I put it in the top right, just like a normal half cross stitch like that, okay? I flip it over. I put my needle through the loop, and I pull it taut. Okay, that's how I start with the loop method. So now I have that. Now, on the first one, to start, I will come up through the bottom right. Let me check, make sure you guys can see that. I don't know if I'm zoomed in enough. Sorry, I'm trying to look underneath my phone. Okay, so I come up to the bottom right, cross over into the top left. So I've made my first X. Now this is when I start doing the sewing method. I work right to left on my chart. So let's say I've got 5 X's in a row. I'll come back up on the second one in the bottom left. I go across in the top right just like a normal cross stitch, but I rock my needle straight across to the left and come out that hole. So I'm going to raise that up. Hopefully my camera will focus. We'll raise it up closer. Let me do it again. I go into the top right, I rock my needle straight across and come out that top left hole. And I pull, and I've made the half cross. Now on the bottom, I cross over, I go to the bottom right, rock my needle, and I skip this space, so I skip and come out in the next bottom left. Pull, then I start that all over again. I go to my top right, rock my needle to the left, top left, straight across, pull, cross over, bottom right, rock my needle, skip the first hole, come out the second hole. Go to the top right, rock my needle, come out the top left, pull, cross over, bottom right, rock my needle, and my finger's under there going like this, okay? Skip the first hole, because you don't want to, if you come out like that, where are you going to go? Okay, so you skip that first hole, you come out the second hole. Top right, rock your needle, come out the top left, pull, cross over, bottom right, come back up. Sometimes I don't rock my needle, sometimes I just take my hand, go underneath, and come back up. Okay, so I'm going to pull that out and do it again, because I think starting is the hardest part. I hope this is making sense. This is how I stitch in hand. Now, if you watch Fat Quarter Shop's Floss Tube, Kimberly Jolly stitches in hand, and she does it totally different than me. She does a different motion with her needle. Whoops. She does a different motion with her needle, and she does her stitches to where she is pulling her needle this way towards her. That's not how I do it. I do it side to side. I'm going to get my needle threader to make this easier to thread. Okay. So, put my needle, if you haven't done this before, if you're super new, you take your needle threader, you take any one of these sides. I prefer the thin side. You stick it through your needle hole like that, the eye of the needle. Put your thread in, and then pull it through like that. Okay, that keeps me from having to lick my floss 20 times while I do this. Alright, so I've done the loop method. I've got the half cross. Let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit. No, I can't zoom in, so I'll try to hold it closer. Hopefully that works. Okay, so I've got it squeezed in my left hand. I've got my needle in my right hand. So I've got the loop method. I come up on the bottom right. This is my first stitch. And I go down the top left. I come down the bottom left, pull out, cross over to the top right, rock my needle, and go straight through to the top left, cross over to the bottom right, go over 2 holes, so skip that one, 1, 2, straight across, pull, go to the top right, rock your needle, and this needle is not super sharp. Some brands have sharper needles. Now, this fabric is really loose, and it's easy for me to rock my needle. When I'm stitching something that has a tight weave like a Monaco, I poke my middle finger a lot. So, I have started to stay away from those fabrics because I end up with a hurt finger because I'm working harder to get the needle through the fabric, so I prefer fabric that I don't have to stab as much. So after I do this, I have a couple more types of fabric to show you on. Okay, so I pull that through, cross over to the bottom right, go over 2 holes, so 1, 2, pull. Now I'm going to show you what this looks like when I'm going fast, okay? So once you get the hang of it, you're just like this. Of course, it's not as fast as I would be in my lap because I'm got my hands on the table and I'm underneath my camera phone. So this is a lot faster for me to stitch than in a hoop. Now, I still love my hoops. Certain projects, I need a hoop. When I started 40 count, I need a hoop to pull the fabric out. So that's what the sewing method looks like fast. Or, you know what I'm saying. Like a normal stitch speed for me if I'm just doing a straight line. Okay, so let's say I've got to go, my chart says to go back this way. Or let's say the chart has 2 rows. What I do is I do that last stitch, and then to move down, I go from the bottom right to the next hole. I go like this and come down the bottom left of the new hole, and then again top right, top left. If I try to turn this piece around and I didn't go down first, my stitches would come out. And that's something you learn when you stitch in hand, is you have to change the way that you lay your stitches out, because when you start flipping around doing this and that, sometimes they'll come out. So I've just learned which stitches I need to do that with, and that just comes with practice. So then what I do is I turn it around like this, and I start in the second hole, bottom left, and I just go back the other way, top right, cross over, bottom right, go straight across like that. Can you see that, how I'm doing it? Cross over like that. You see how that needle's going? And you go back the other way. And what my back looks like is this. It looks very different than traditional cross stitching. So the only thing that changes is how you start and end your thread. So instead of me just running my needle through like this, I have to go in like a ladder motion. So I have to go like this. If I had to end my stitches here, I would just go like this, and I would crisscross about 4 times like that, and I would cut my thread. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this thread, and I'm going to move to a smaller piece of Aida, a white Aida, and show you what it looks like on there. So this is just a scrap piece I was working on another project on. I'm actually going to just cut this off. I had started another project on this and switched fabrics. Okay. So let me get another piece of floss. And what I do is, if I'm stitching with DMC, I will use a loop method all the time. If I'm stitching with hand dyed and it's the first stitches of the project or the first stitches in that area, and I don't have anywhere to to start, you know, like to work my thread under to hold it, I will still do the loop method with 1 strand and then continue with 2 strands, 1 stitch at a time for the variegation. So, you know, sometimes you just gotta change what you're doing to make it work. Let me get a drink of coffee. Okay, so maybe you had trouble seeing that on the other fabric, so I'm gonna try a second piece of fabric. The best thing to do, see, this is really stiff. This is the best thing. 14 count Aida is the best. A stiff 14 count Aida is the best fabric, in my opinion, to learn how to stitch in hand, because the stiffness gives you the stability that you need in order to work on your tension. A softer fabric, you're going to have more trouble with your tension. you can look at my projects and I'll show them on my floss tubes. Look, I was pulling too tight. And now when you go to finish your projects and you stretch it over sticky board and things like that, a lot of that will work itself out. But you still need to be careful about your tension and not pull too tight. So here I'm going to start. I came up through the bottom left. I'm going down through the top right. And pull it through to do the loop method. I didn't hold it with my thumb that time because this fabric is so stiff I don't have to hold it with my thumb. Okay, so I have a half cross started. I know that's really, let me see if I can get that lower. Okay. I'm coming through the bottom left. I'm sorry, ignore that. I'm coming up through the bottom right. If I can do it. Okay. Pulling my thread up. Going to the top left. This is always going to happen on your second stitch because your first stitch is in a different order than the rest of your stitches. I'm going to rock it down to the bottom left, pull my needle through, and now I can start with the regular sewing motion. So top right, rock my needle against my finger. What I'm doing is I'm going like this. That's what it looks like underneath my fabric. So I'm rocking that needle. I'm not stabbing, I'm rocking. So top right, rock it and come out the top left. Pull your strand, you got a half cross. Cross over, bottom right. Go over 2 holes, skip this hole, come out the second hole, and pull. Top right, come out the top left, pull, cross over to the bottom right, skip 1 hole, come out the second hole, like that. So I always stitch like this. I'm going right to left, right to left, right to left. That's how I do it. There are other methods. The best thing to do is to, if you don't like the way I do it, is to not give up. Watch Kimberly Jolly, watch the Housewives, watch how they move their needle. It's going to be a little bit different. Once you find the groove that works for you, then you'll start going faster and you'll be more accurate. And I will say this, okay, so if you're going diagonally, like, let me make a new stitch. What I have learned is that if I'm going, now this is going diagonally down towards myself. If I go like this, okay, then you just start over. So you just rock it down the bottom right, and then I will have to turn my needle and go this way. But I only do that when I'm going diagonally. And actually I prefer to skip a stitch because they always seem to get like ugly and messed up that way. So now if there's when I was showing you this and I flipped it upside down and went back the other way, sometimes it's not practical to keep flipping it upside down. So what I do, and I learned this from Priscilla, is, let's say it's just 4 stitches, and then, so I'll do 4 real quick. And then there's 3 stitches right here. Instead of going and start, like, what I'll do to work my way backwards is I'll go like, I'll come up, do a stitch, I will skip a stitch, and do that, and then I will go to the right again. Because I do not stitch in hand left to right, I stitch right to left. So in order to be able to do that, I'll do that. Now, there are some times when that is the most practical way to do it. And again, that comes with experience. I'm sorry, I'm probably shaking this table like crazy. It just comes with experience of when it's easier to do that than to flip your fabric like this. Okay? Sometimes your chart is, because when I flip my fabric, sometimes I'll just flip the whole chart. It just depends on how easily I can read the chart. Some charts, I will just flip upside down. I have no problem. I'll do a whole border upside down. But some charts I can't do that, and I'll have to do that. I'll have to go across and then work my way back over. Go across, work my way back over. So, like I said, that just comes with experience. Let me think if there's anything else I need to show. I will show on a Lugana. Now, I don't know how well y'all gonna be able to see this. This is where it can get tricky when you're first starting out. And I'm just looking for my floss. I might pick another color out of this bag. I'll do. Let's see. We'll use this red color. Okay. So, on Lugana, you're stitching, or let's just say the standard stitch on this is a 25 count Cloud Lugana by Lori Holt. This is a scrap piece of mine. And generally, on Lugana, you're going to stitch 2 threads over 2 holes. So when you stitch in hand, once you get the hang of Aida, then you can move on to your even weaves, but you just have to count differently. Now, everybody has their own way of counting. So I'm just going to show you what I do. Okay, I got it like way too long of a piece. So, what I do is I come up, and in my mind, I have chosen that as my full square, okay? So I'll come up, and you see, let me see how close I can get. There's a little hole right there. I'm skipping that hole, and I'm going to the next hole. So it's 1, 2. That's what it means, over 2. So go over 2. I pull this. I'm going to tie the loop off. And then, to find my spot, I have to go, there's the original hole. I have to go 1, 2. So 2 down. And then I have to go 1, which is underneath the cross, 2. So that's my square. 2 over 2. Then I have to go 1, 2. Now, when I first started Lugana, I had to count like that. Now, my eyes adjust, and I see these 2 spaces as 1 space. So your eyes will start to learn your X's. And then I just do the same thing. I go bottom right, rock my needle. Now, I'm not going to come up that hole, because let me show you what happens if I come up that hole and then pull it. You'll be able to tell. Well, my DMC got knotted. That's one good reason not to do it. No, we don't want knots. Okay. Normally I wouldn't be this rough, but this is just scrap stuff. Okay. Now, it's going to look funky because you're going to be like, wait a minute. Let me make sure this is in frame. I'm sorry, y'all. This is not my skill set. Where am I at? Okay. It's gonna, I hope you can see that. It's gonna be funky looking. So if I make a mistake, I just push my needle back down that hole to take the thread out, and I start over. Okay, so bottom right. Now I'm skipping 2 and then 2 because you're going 2 over 2. So it's actually Okay, so you're going top right, you skip a hole, top left, pull your cross, bottom right. So just make sure when you come back up, you're counting 1, 2. Now, in my mind, I don't count 1, 2. I just count 1. But like I said, that's because my eyes adjust and I know to skip these holes. Unlike Aida. You don't skip the holes on Aida. And I have found that this Lori Holt Lugana is very nice to stitch in hand with. But like I said, you have to watch your tension, because if you start pulling too tight, you're going to get real sloppy motifs. They're going to be pulled tight, real tight, like it'll start pulling and tucking. I have some cross stitches like that. My Lori Holt Sew by Row, I was tense and I was stressed out when I was stitching a lot of it. So there's places where it's bunched up like this around the stitching. Okay, so I'm going to review this. I hope that you could see everything. I had to like look and twist my head up under my phone to be able to see what I was doing. But I hope that helped you. If you have any questions, or you need me to show you anything else, please let me know. I'm happy to show you anything. It's just sort of like I don't know what to go over, but if you ask me, I will go over it. Or if you want to send me a picture of a chart, you can do that, and I will help you work through how to do certain stitches. Oh, somebody's waiting. Okay. Alright. Bye, guys.